Hey guys, what's up? It's La coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today I think I finally maybe came to terms with some things that I probably should have come to terms with a lot sooner, but it's something to navigate and figure out. Because I think it's something that's been holding me back a lot, and I guess I just lost sight of it as I got older. I mean, it's a really common thing to lose sight of. I don't think it's a crazy event. It's pretty normal, but it's such a critical thing and a critical oversight, which is why I think it's as silly as it is. Which is that it is very difficult for me to forgive. I constantly, throughout my life, have just not had it in me to forgive. I've explained it before on the channel in other episodes that I've poured a lot into people. People have not reciprocated. And it doesn't make me feel good, and it leaves me in this state where I can't stop arguing in my head. Because I've been in so many arguments that I'm right about. You know? And I'm not saying that just to say it, because I know a lot of people say that, but I want to try to really be honest and truthful about it. It's things I know I was right about. I know for a fact that I was right about these things. And that's the whole point. You know, like, I know I was right. These weren't situations where there was any, doubt in my mind at all. You know? And that's the worst part, is knowing that you're right and knowing that I said the right things and made the right arguments to the person, and them still denying that they did anything wrong. And that this behavior has been as repeated as it has been in my life. It's probably been a sign. It's probably been some kind of a test I was put through. Because I don't know. I mean, in a way, it's been helpful, because I think I always had the potential to debate, but I was always fairly bad at it. Like, when I was a teenager, I guess I had an ability to debate, but I wasn't really... A lot of my, way of talking was just stamina wins. It wasn't... I don't know. It's actually interesting just how far I've come just in listening to lots and lots of content. Tons of political content from left, right. So many different philosophical, long... I've spent so much time just soaking this stuff in. So I think it's really developed me in a big way, and I still have a lot to learn, I think. You know, I'm hoping that, and I continue to listen to a lot of content and, try to expose myself to as much as possible. And so I've grown a lot since a teenager, when I kind of first was dabbling in speaking and debating and kind of getting into it. I've come a very long way. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Now, what does this have to do with what I was talking about? Right, why it's difficult for me to forgive. I think that you could make the argument this is a bit of a silly point to make because a lot of people are like this anyway. So a lot of people think they're right. Most people just assume that they're correct in an argument. And yeah, it's obviously a problem because even if they're wrong, people are not going to come to terms with it. Most people don't admit they're wrong. I've barely ever seen it happen. I have, because I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, I try my best to vet my information and make sure that my arguments are sound, but if I'm wrong about something or I don't know something, I just say it. Like it's not really, but I notice a lot of people just try to wedge their way in even if they don't really know what they're talking about. I don't really want to get too much into that, but let's try to stay a little bit more on track, I guess. I've been in a lot of these situations with people, and it really hurts when people have doubted me about things that I'm completely correct on. So I'll say something. There was this one situation, just having a random conversation on Discord, and I just mentioned how the Switch had a NVIDIA CPU and GPU. And this guy just like didn't believe me, and he was like, and then he like went quiet, and then he was like, "Oh, it actually does." He said, "Oh, it actually does." And I was like, "Yeah, I didn't say like I wasn't sure, like I knew. I said I knew." Right? It's like so foreign to me. Another time when I was looking into one of my second desktop build, this guy was trying to argue with me about getting a PCIe Gen 4 SSD instead of a Gen 3. And I was showing him it doesn't make any sense because the speed is barely a difference just because it's quote-unquote hitting the quote-unquote Gen 4 classification does not mean that it's good. You have to look at the read and write speed, and basically there was a good sale on a top spec Gen 3 that had like a really fast read and write, and he was comparing it to a really budget Gen 4 that was barely any faster but cost so much more. So it didn't make any sense, and he argued with me for a really long time, and this was a smart guy. Remember, I never really did anything. I didn't do anything crazy in school ever. This guy was some guy who took, extra honors classes and was, a quote unquote smart guy. And he spent all that time. And then eventually, after about like 20 or 30 minutes, he was like, oh, I get what you're saying. You see what, and those are just a few examples. But a lot of times when it comes to numbers or specific details like that, I'm very good, and I know what I'm talking about. And of course I get some things wrong, but it's not usually. Usually I don't. Usually if I'm going to assert a detail like that, I know. And if I don't know, I don't assert it. And I would say something like, I think, I'm not sure, maybe we should look this up. I always do that. Now, a lot of people, of course, are kind of lazy and they don't even feel like doing that. So that's a whole other issue to deal with, But yeah, it's just, I don't know. What else is new? You know what I mean? It's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So I've been through this a lot in life, and it causes me a lot of frustration because I remember all these moments. Like, I don't forget. I have a good memory, and I really remember a lot of things. I remember like I've said this before. I obviously forget stuff like anybody. I don't have, a photographic memory. I don't have anything crazy going on, but my memory is pretty good. I remember stuff definitely above average, but again, it's not photographic. And when it comes to studying, like, I was never like the greatest studier, but just when it comes to just general memory, generally remembering things, I'm definitely above average. And it's isolating. It's scary because I remember things and nobody else does, and then it feels like, well, what's the point of even doing things with other people if they don't care to the same degree as me? Because that's always what I say about it, is people remember the things they care about. That's how it works. People do not forget things that they care about. And the truth is, a lot of people don't care about the things that they should care about. They don't feel an imperative to care. They only care about things pertaining to humor or something flashy that grabs their attention. Things like that. That's what people care about. And that eats up a lot of people's care, and then they don't have time or energy for the things that they're supposed to care about. So see, even this kind of a conversation, it shows my character and my conscientiousness, my sense of accountability when it comes to social behavior, how I conduct myself to others. And I give a lot as a result of that, but it's never reciprocated. And then, I don't know, people forget about stuff, people are haphazard. But I've given people a lot of amazing social experiences. It's just that, I don't know, people just end up getting mad at me over something. It's usually just some vague kind of reason, and then they just are gone. I usually, I don't know, don't really get too much. So it's difficult for me to forgive given what I've been through. And so I still think about from time to time. Now, I have gotten over a lot of people, of course, and I think this is something I'm doing better with, but that's what I realized, is that forgiving people is like the biggest teaching that Jesus even has, and that in any religion is taught. And as much as I'm looking forward to the Peter Thiel hyper justice, everything's tracked, everybody gets a fair repercussion for every wrong that they do, I just wonder what the purpose is of this life, and if that is one of the higher things to do. Now, I guess you have to be careful because you can get abused, you can get taken advantage of with the aggressive forgiveness. But it's a very, very high level thought. It's very difficult for a human to forgive across the board. And that's why, even though it's even more difficult for me, I want to do it, because I know that's actually what the point is. It has to be. I want to try to explain further I think and I see things very transactionally, very quantitatively, very exact, very accurately, very systemically. So without fail, I think just about everybody I've ever talked to has not realized that if you don't take care of your own health, that it costs everybody else more money because of the way insurance works. If you have to go to the hospital for something that you could have prevented with a healthier lifestyle, it puts strain on the system. More people going to hospitals uses up more of the hospital's resources. It raises people's insurance rates because the insurance has to pay more. Now, granted, there is corruption with the insurance companies, don't get me wrong. In countries that have a public insurance through the government, it's still a cost through taxes, meaning taxes could be lower if people were more responsible, because there are people who have genetic conditions or people who go to the hospital for unavoidable reasons. And that's why I think it's disrespectful. It's very disrespectful to not try your absolute hardest to be healthy. It's very important, because if you harm yourself in any significant way, you cost so much to the system. And a lot of people don't think this way at all. What I always heard in school was, well, as long as you don't judge me, I won't judge you, and as long as you're doing your own thing, I'm doing my own thing. And it's a nice, it makes you feel good. It feels modern. It feels like a higher understanding. People thinking that, well, if people harm themselves, that's fine, just don't harm others. But it's not progress at all. It's actually a ridiculous regression. It's a radical regression. And it's a product of an apathetic society, of a nihilistic society, which is what we reside in. Society would be much better, and this is going to tailor back to one of my original ideas. The idea of expectations. How, yes, it is good for society to put high expectations on other people, to expect human civility, to expect good things, to act good. Have high expectations for people. It's good. This idea that we need to judge less makes no sense. Of course, judging the things that are irrelevant should not be judged. If one person's favorite color is yellow and another person's favorite color is blue, those people should not argue. And yet, those are the things that people love to argue about. I have seen it my whole life. Everybody loves arguing about the things that don't matter. And the things that do matter, immediately it's like, oh, well, let's not talk about that. That's controversial. Oh, because it would be so bad to talk about important things. It would be so terrible. And instead to waste our time with, oh, you're weird for wearing this outfit. Oh, look at you. Look at how you stupid you are. Ha ha. But those same people, oh no, but judging. No, let's just waste our time talking about nonsense. High expectations are a good thing. But people are spiraling in that direction. And how does this come into forgiveness? Well, people are not aware. There's a lack of awareness. So everybody I've mentioned the insurance thing to never heard of it before. And there's a lot of people, even after I've told them, they just don't change. I don't think their judgment or their considerateness or anything changes at all. They just still continue to live the exact same way. I don't know if they don't believe me or if there's a mixture of not believing me and something. I don't know. But I've seen it with multiple people. I explain things to people and they don't care. It doesn't concern them. It doesn't matter to them. And that was always a shocker to me, because in my life and growing up, I wanted to learn things and try to do the right thing. So it was always foreign to me that people didn't want to talk about that stuff. And that's why I learned you can't have unsolicited advice and all this stuff. But I was never trying to give advice. I just thought it was interesting conversation. That's always what would happen. It's always what would happen. Now back to what I was talking about. It's difficult for me to forgive people who have a limited awareness. I think are at more peace. I actually have such an extreme comprehension of the world, and like I said, I guess I see things as transactional, and I remember things, and it's just what I see. I mean, I'm not trying to be uptight. It's just that's how it is. And I think there's so many things that people do that are bad and they don't know, and that's part of the whole issue, is that people are doing selfish things but they don't realize it because it's just never even been brought to their attention. A mixture of negligence and not caring, for sure. It's a mixture. But stuff's never been brought to their attention. And that's the whole problem, right? This is why we run into the things that we run into. It's ignorance. And so I guess I have to forgive ignorance. And it's difficult to do that from my angle. But then again, I think a lot of ignorant people, it's kind of fair game. And this is the devil's advocate probably, is that there's a lot of ignorant people where it's kind of just as difficult for them to forgive because they don't even, they don't think that far. And they just think about themselves, so they're not gonna think in that way. You know what I mean? It's gonna be difficult for them to see things that way. And so it's tricky, but I think there are some people who are probably more compassionate than me, who don't understand the world as well, and law of attraction is a lot easier for them. Following Jesus' teaching to infinitely forgive is easier because they don't see like just how twisted things are. I think a lot of people have a vague comprehension and assumption of it. But that's why I've kind of been trying to just come to terms with the way things are and not be as activisty about it, because it's just it is what it is. I don't really know how else to deal with it. I don't know, and I mean, I figure reality is how it is. I don't know. I guess I don't see what is accomplished by speaking up against a lot of the injustice unless I was somehow able to be a part of a good fight. But I just don't see it mattering. Like I said, I think there's an error with the human condition. So I think maybe it would be better for me to just take part in it, but then I obviously go back and forth on this. This is not something I haven't figured it out. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it seems difficult. It seems like a difficult answer to come up with from my perspective. And so that's why I think it's hard for me to forgive, because I'm able to see things so well and I see what could be. And it's very sad for me. I can see the utopia. I know how it would work. And I think a lot of people can't see that, or they don't see the like, it's easy to be more forgiving if you don't see as much and you don't understand as much. Having that type of intellect, it just makes it very difficult to let go of things because you're always reminded of them. But it's while it's a daunting task, I think the reward could be greater, because I just really think that it could be kind of this last pillar for me to get over. Because my life, it's already relatively good. I think a lot of people would want it if they could pick. And it's always difficult to see that. It's difficult to see it when you're the one inside of the body. And I was the type of person where I always wanted other people's lives. I wanted to be other people, usually due to social reasons. To me, it seemed like there were a lot of people who were socially better off than I was. And that was really my main interest in envy. Was that I loved people, I loved talking, but I felt like a loser. I felt like I wasn't good at talking. And yet here we are, where now I feel like I don't know, I don't meet a lot of people who talk as well as me, like in a one-on-one conversation. I'm obviously not the best when it comes to broad socializing still. I'm still below average in that regard. But when it comes to the potential, my intimate conversations with friends or family, I've just never met anybody who talks as well as I do. And that's crazy given my history. And I never thought that about myself. You know, that's the crazy thing. I never thought that. But now I'm realizing it's my gift. This is like my whole thing is talking. I don't know what if it wasn't for talking, I wouldn't even, I don't know. I'd have like no hobbies. No, that's not true. That's not true. But talking in language is at the core of all my hobbies, of my possessions and things that I like to collect. I obviously like to talk about them. And yes, talking in language is always at the core of it. But I think that idea of forgiveness is so important, to be more giving, because I just have not been able to do that. And there's still so much pain, and it's so heavy on me, the amount I've been hurt, both in the depths of the strikes, but also the volume of strikes. I've been hurt a lot. In depth and volume. But I'm realizing it causes so much pain, and it weighs on me very heavy. And so the rest of my life, I'm operating at a good level. I'm doing a lot of things that are good for the planet, good for others, good for society. But I think in terms of my direct forgiveness with people, it needs some work in the small sense of things. Because in terms of my contributions to the world, my contributions to society, me doing my part as a guy in his early 20s, I have all the boxes checked. But in terms of me forgiving people in a small sense, the boxes are not checked. The boxes are not checked. So I think that's important to point out, you know. But yeah, I mean, being worried, it's held me back a lot. And that's always the thing I've said. It really has just held me back in huge ways. If I had worried less, I would be a lot happier. So moving forward, it's just a huge thing I need to reduce. Like, I need to be more forgiving and just less worrying. I mean, I don't know, because it's honestly, with the kind of stuff the law of attraction says, the amount I've worried should have completely sabotaged me. So there must be other things that I do that have compensated for that. Because it's crazy when I think about that. But it makes me think about, if I didn't have that doubt and worry, where I'd be right now. And it's crazy, because there's literally a timeline when I was 14, 15, 16, I was all into that stuff. I was all into faith and hope, you know, and like really being legit about stuff. I was really all into that. That was my whole thing. And I don't know what happened. I just spiraled out of control after that brief awakening point, and just I couldn't handle being alone. That was because I was doing very well. I was very happy, and I was doing very well, but loneliness consumed me. And so then I spiraled out of control, and I wanted to focus on being normal, more palatable. But, you know, that didn't really end up panning out too well. But I would have been, I think, something special if I had been on that timeline. But it gave me a taste. You know, it gave me like kind of a a prerequisite to where I'm at now. I wonder if I didn't do what I did before, if I would really be having this conversation. It's possible I wouldn't have been having this conversation. So maybe it was all part of the process. I hope it was, but in a lot of ways, I think I created a lot of negative karma just for no reason. I mean, like, I knew better, but I just don't know what happened, you know? And I was way more negative than I needed to be. Just way more negative. But I hope to get on track. It's going to take a while, though. I mean, a lot of these thought patterns are there, but I'm just trying to get somewhere, you know, and the fact that that intention is there is pretty big. I declared it a few episodes ago, but we're already starting to unravel the puzzle now, getting a bit more specific about this issue of forgiveness and being able to let go even when it's wrong to, because that's just something that's difficult for me, because I really think about right and wrong a lot. But it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.